August 8th, 2025. If you go to Wikipedia and you search for the list of public disasters in the United States or in the United States history by total number of deaths or by death toll, you will actually find that currently there's only one thing that's listed as over 1 million, and that is COVID-19. Of course, that's a very complicated number filled with deceit, as we've been talking about. But number two is listed currently as the opioid epidemic. Now, it lists it as 725,000 as of the end of 2023. Again, it depends upon how you count these things. I mean, when did it technically start? Do you account for some number for a baseline? I've heard numbers up to 900,000 over the last 15 years or close to 1 million. Fair to have it be that long of a time frame. How many people would question the validity of saying that there are 700,000 deaths from HIV in the United States of America, even though that number goes all the way back almost 45 years to 1981? I challenge you to find anyone that says, well, we should only view the last 5 years as the real HIV epidemic. No, they would use the maximum number of years possible. So why should anyone even have to defend using a 15-year period when going all the way back to 1981 or 45 years for the HIV epidemic to justify something which has had, I don't even need to do the math, but probably 100 to 500, maybe even 1,000 times as many resources and dollars invested in that than the drug epidemic in the United States? All legitimate questions. The other thing to factor in, though, is what's the average age of those deaths? And if you factor in that many of the people who died of drug overdoses are teenagers, 20s and 30-somethings, you'll quickly see that the number of years of life lost, that is, the age of death versus life expectancy. Of course, by that, you have to factor in how many people died as well. You'll realize that the opioid epidemic in the United States of America is, in terms of years of life lost, the greatest single loss of life in the history of the United States. Now, the one thing that would rival it is the United States Civil War, where we had in excess of 600,000 deaths. Of course, many of those were from, exposure and disease. Many of those people were very young, too. So in terms of years of life lost and then a factor in the total population of the nation, the United States Civil War, I think it's fair to say, is by far and away the worst disaster in U.S. history. But number two is the opioid epidemic, which begs the question, how is it possible that the greatest or the second greatest event in the history of the United States in terms of life lost in the history of the United States, we're talking all famines, all wars, all terrorist attacks, all influenzas, the second greatest in the history of the United States is currently being ignored by most of independent media. Here's your thoughts for the day. Take care. God bless.